They watched the stars ripple before it came. At first, just one ship. A shape like a black blade carving through space, surrounded by a silent storm of electromagnetic chaos. The alien fleet that had camped above the ruined colony of Cestus 9 went dead quiet on the comms. Their chatter, once loud with laughter and idle threats, had turned to whispers, then silence. Long-range scanners blinked in disbelief. One ship. "Identify," the Zarn commander hissed, mandibles twitching. No one answered. Because they all knew. That ship wasn't alien. It wasn't one of the thousands of galactic governments that bowed before the Zarn dominion. It didn't match any design in the records of the League, or the Trade Corps, or the Kashane cultivates. It was human. The name Earth hadn't been spoken in decades, not since the collapse of the frontier colonies, not since the humans had fractured and fallen back into their own system, licking wounds after years of being pushed out, bought out, bled dry. The other species had laughed. Let the monkeys implode. Let their ambition rot in their own gravity well. But here it was. Earth's fleet, or worse, just a piece of it. Captain Theron Beck stood at the helm of the Vindicator, arms crossed, boots anchored, face lit by cold blue tactical glow. His eyes tracked the enemy formation, 3 dreadnoughts, 7 cruisers, and a cloud of skirmishers floating above the dead colony his people once called home. "Broadcast open channel," he said. His voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. The comms officer looked up. "Sir, they're jamming all—" "Push it through." A burst of static. Then his voice. "This is Theron Beck, Earth Fleet Command. We are not here to negotiate." The pause lasted 3 full seconds. Then every weapon in the Zarn fleet turned toward the Vindicator. The Zarn underestimated Earth. Everyone did. The last time Earth fought in the galactic wars, it had bled too much too fast. Their colonies were scattered, their people fragmented, and the political bodies that once shouted for dominance were swallowed by infighting. It was the end, they said. Humanity was over. But humanity didn't die. It waited. In the void. In silence. In gravity wells too deep for scanners to find. It built. In secret bunkers buried beneath the Martian crust, in derelict shipyards floating in Saturn's rings, in the black ice of Europa, humanity rebuilt. And more importantly, it remembered. They remembered Cestus 9. They remembered the children crucified on heat-scorched walls by alien conquerors. They remembered the screaming. They remembered how the galaxy watched and did nothing. So when the Vindicator arrived alone, it wasn't alone for long. The Zarn fired first, a pulse wave strong enough to tear through hull plating. The Vindicator didn't move. It absorbed the shot with a layer of particle-dampening armor Earthfleet had designed to counter exotic tech. An innovation the rest of the galaxy didn't know humans had perfected. Then the ship answered. 1 railgun shell, 1 shot. It punched through the lead Zarn dreadnought like a knife through soaked paper. The explosion didn't echo in space, but inside every Zarn skull it screamed. A moment later, 9 more shadows dropped out of the warp stream behind the Vindicator, one after another. 10 total, each ship bearing the mark they hadn't seen in a generation. Earthfleet Command. No bright banners. No speeches, no demands. Just ships built for one purpose: vengeance. Theron watched the enemy scatter, scrambling to form a perimeter. "Status?" he asked, still calm. "All systems green. Earthfleet is fully synchronized. Target acquisition locked. Orders, sir?" He didn't blink, didn't move. "Burn them all." Theron Beck didn't flinch as the first wave of enemy fire screamed toward them. He stood motionless on the command deck of the Vindicator, his jaw tight, hands clasped behind his back. Around him, Earthfleet's bridge crew worked like an extension of the ship itself, efficient, sharp, trained to kill. Zarn fleet is spreading into a flanking formation, Lieutenant Heron reported. Skirmishers are attempting to flank the Resolute and Salem's wake. Let them try, Theron said. Patch me into the fleet. The comms officer nodded. Open channel. Across all 10 Earthfleet ships, his voice came in like thunder through vacuum. This is Admiral Beck. You've trained for this. You've bled for this. You watched our people get carved up while the galaxy turned its eyes away. You know what they did to Cestus, to Vega, to the Earth colonies. You know why we're here. No mercy, no negotiations. You see a Zarn vessel, you erase it. He paused, then said flatly, "Fire at will." The fleet came alive. Missile bays opened. Railguns roared like titans waking from millennia of slumber. Plasma beams lanced through the void in thick, blinding blue strokes. 10 Earth warships, each one a city-sized weapon built in secret, unleashed hell at once. The Zarn had expected one ship, maybe a rogue survivor. They had not expected 10. They hadn't expected vengeance engineered with surgical brutality or AI-assisted weapon systems that targeted faster than Zarn computers could process. They weren't prepared for Earth's silence to have meant planning. Patience. Hatred cultivated like a weapon. Their fleet started dying immediately. The Bloodlash. Their central cruiser caught 3 high-velocity slugs straight through its core. It tore in half like a rotten fruit, spilling atmosphere and insectoid crew into the cold. The Zarn didn't retrieve their dead. They didn't have time. The Resolute dove beneath the flaming wreckage, swerving on a dime in a maneuver most alien ships would have cracked under. Its belly opened up, launching seismic warheads that shattered the shields of 2 more cruisers in one brutal blast. Beck watched it all through the projection screen hovering above the bridge table. Each red marker blinked out. Another dead ship, another piece of Cestus avenged. But it wasn't enough. He turned toward Heron. Send the Black Echo and Wraithfall into the lower flank. Cut off their retreat. Use the bait tactic. Heron blinked. Sir, they're not expecting that kind of aggression. We'll lose. I didn't ask for a casualty report, Beck snapped. I said cut off their retreat. Heron shut his mouth and relayed the command. The Zarn commander, High Prime Zarth, shrieked in his command chamber. His claws clicked against the steel floor, antennae curled back in fury. His fleet, the pride of the Selnari cluster, was dying. We outnumbered them 3-1, he hissed at his second. Humans do not fight as others do, the second chittered nervously. They are emotional, reckless. No, Zarth spat, pacing. His eyes glued to the tactical feed. This is not emotion. This is design. This is revenge. He watched another Zarn cruiser implode under the weight of a concentrated plasma barrage. Earthfleet ships were moving like a coordinated organism, every angle covered, every blind spot a trap. This wasn't war. This was punishment. Retreat! Zarth screamed. Signal retreat to the remaining ships. The command was cut off by static. His screen went black. Then it flickered. A human face appeared. Admiral Theron Beck. Calm, cold, unblinking. I know who you are, Zarth, he said. Zarth recoiled, stunned. How? I remember Cestus 9, Beck said. You were the one who ordered the executions, the one who had children burned alive to make a point. You were weak, Zarth shrieked. Your people spread too far. Your colonies fell because you thought you could own the stars. Beck's voice didn't rise. We don't want to own the stars. He leaned forward, and Zarth swore the human's eyes bore into him through the feed. We want to make sure no one forgets what you did. The feed cut, and a second later, The Wraithfall dropped from cloak, directly above Zarth's command ship, and slammed a kinetic rod through its hull. There was no explosion, just collapse. The ship crumpled inwards, like the vacuum had finally remembered it was hungry. Zarth didn't get to scream. Earthfleet's victory was total. It took 26 minutes. 342 Zarn ships, destroyed. No survivors. The last enemy signal was a panicked distress call, begging for reinforcements. It never got out. Earthfleet jammed it with old Earth war music, a heavy metal dirge that throbbed in static over the dying frequency. A final insult. Beck stood at the center of the bridge in silence. The room was quiet. No cheering, no celebration. Just the low hum of systems and the quiet understanding that something monumental had happened. "Damage report," Beck said. "Minimal," Heron replied. "Wraithfall lost outer plating. No casualties." Beck nodded. "Good." He stared at the projection of what used to be the Zarn fleet. "Let the galaxy see this," he said. "Sir?" the comms officer asked. "Send the footage, unedited, raw. Send it to every system, every trade route, every neutral station. Broadcast it on every language frequency. Make sure even the rocks on distant moons know." He turned his gaze to the crew. "Earth is back." It took 5 hours for the footage to reach the outer rings. Within 10, it had spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Neutral systems froze diplomatic communications. Trade routes were rerouted away from Earth sectors. Some species, the ones who remembered Earth's last war with reverence or fear, began closing their embassies quietly. The Zarn Dominion didn't respond. Not because they were being cautious, because they had no high command left. Earthfleet's assault had burned them out in one blow. The power vacuum snapped wider. Panic spread. And Earth watched. Beck sat in his private quarters, watching the old video again. It was shaky, recorded on some colonist's handheld drone just before the massacre. Children running, laughter, the sun rising on Cestus 9. Then flames, screaming, Zarn soldiers unloading plasma rifles into a school dome, buildings turning to ash, mothers shielding infants with their bodies. He'd watched this video 1,000 times. He still hadn't forgotten the way his sister screamed in the background, the last thing he ever heard her say. He closed the file. A chime rang. He answered. It was Rear Admiral Corrin on board the Resolute. Her voice was sharp, tactical. "The cleanup teams have finished. No Zarn tech recovered. Their self-destruct failsafes burned most of it." "Good," Beck said. "You're going to get calls," she added. "The Council, the League, the Trade Corps. They're not going to like what we just did. I don't care. They'll say it was genocide." Beck stood, turned toward the viewport. Beyond the glass, the remnants of the Zarn fleet drifted like ash. "Let them." She didn't respond right away. Then, softly, "What's next?" Beck didn't answer for a moment. Then, "We find the ones who funded the Zarn, the ones who gave them weapons, the ones who told them Earth was soft." Corrin exhaled. "It's a long list." Beck's voice was iron. "Then we'd better get started." Far away, in the marble towers of the Galactic Council's homeworld, a meeting had already begun. Ambassadors from over 70 species sat in tense silence. Footage of Earthfleet's return played on loop behind them. The slow, surgical destruction, the cold silence of the fleet, the last message from Theron Beck. Some were furious, some were terrified. But one thing was certain. The humans were no longer irrelevant. And they had not come back as diplomats. They had come back as executioners. They didn't cheer. Even after the war room's data cleared, showing 0 remaining Zarn signatures, No one aboard Earthfleet raised a fist or cracked a smile. The silence following the slaughter of an entire fleet wasn't relief. It was restraint. Admiral Theron Beck walked the cold halls of the Vindicator alone, arms at his sides, boots echoing against metal grating. He hadn't slept. Couldn't. His body was wired to keep going, but not because of adrenaline or duty. It was something older, a thing deeper than discipline. He didn't want sleep. Sleep brought cestus. Every time. The memory came back when he passed the crew mess. Not the laughing kind. The screaming kind. Theron had been 23, a lieutenant then, fresh out of the Martian Academy, wide-eyed and ambitious, deployed to Cestus 9 as part of a diplomatic attachment. He'd thought war was over. That the galaxy had finally figured out how to live together. Then the Zarn descended. They didn't bomb the city immediately. No, they landed, marched through the colony like they owned it. The EarthGov ambassador had tried to negotiate. They slit his throat live on a public feed. The next 48 hours turned into a hellscape. Plasma fire, screaming children, public executions for broadcast. Theron, wounded in the leg, had crawled for 2 days through smoke and blood before Earth's emergency extraction team arrived. Only 15 people made it off Cestus alive. 15 out of 400,000. He still remembered the silence in the drop shuttle after liftoff. The way the colony looked from orbit. Black, cracked, burning. And the worst part? The rest of the galaxy just moved on. They called it a localized incident. The Trade Corps issued a formal regret. The League of Allied Species held a vote to condemn Zarn aggression, and it failed. EarthGov collapsed within a year. Its colonies were stripped of aid. The message was clear. Humanity had no friends. And now that silence was over. Beck returned to the command deck as the council feed opened. The Vindicator's main screen flickered to life, showing the upper chamber of the Galactic Council. Rows of species sat in their ornate seats, scaled, horned, furred, feathered, watching him like a threat more than a guest. Admiral Theron Beck, a monotone voice said. The speaker, a creature called Traylus, represented the neutral faction of the council. His face had no mouth, just flickering light panels. You are not welcome here. Theron didn't blink. I didn't ask to be. The council chamber buzzed, murmurs echoing in dozens of dialects. Traylus flickered again. You destroyed an entire Zarn fleet. No declaration, no warning. Over 300 vessels. They attacked a protected colony, Beck said coldly. They occupied it, murdered civilians, children. That was nearly 2 decades ago. And that makes it forgivable? More silence. A softer voice, this time a green-skinned diplomat with silver eyes, spoke next. Admiral, we understand your pain, but vengeance at this scale. You don't understand anything, Beck cut her off. Because when Cestus burned, you sat in that same chamber and voted not to intervene. You let it happen. That was before Earthfleet reconstituted, another delegate said, smug. You had no leverage then. Beck stepped closer to the screen. And now? No one answered. He smiled, barely. That's what I thought. The call ended with no agreement, no apology, no condemnation either, just fear, quiet, brittle fear. Earthfleet had done something the galaxy didn't know how to process. They'd kept their silence for 20 years, only to come back with ships faster, weapons stronger, and leadership colder than anything left in galactic politics. And the scariest part? They didn't want land, or money, or resources. They wanted justice. And justice wasn't diplomatic. Later that night, Beck met with Corrin and his senior fleet commanders aboard the Vindicator. They sat in the war room, 12 of them in total, men and women carved from Earth's last generation of military pride. These weren't soft politicians. They weren't polished tacticians. These were soldiers who remembered what it meant to be humiliated. "Status updates," Beck said, leaning forward on the steel table. Corrin tapped her datapad. "We're seeing rapid mobilization along the Trade Corps' edge. They're rerouting shipping lanes to avoid our space." "Good. Keep them out. What about the fringe colonies?" "They're reaching out," said Commander Dre, a grizzled brute from Europa's Ice Guard, saying they've been waiting for Earth's return. Some have weapons caches. Others just want flag support. Beck nodded. "Send emissaries. Quiet ones. We don't announce anything yet." "And the Zarn homeworld?" Corrin asked. Beck paused. His fingers tapped once on the table. Then, coldly, "We leave it. For now." Several commanders shifted in their seats. "Sir," Dre said, "we have momentum. We strike now, we break their core systems before they rebuild." Beck raised a hand. "We could destroy their world." "I know, but that's not how we send the next message." He stood slowly. "They lost a fleet. They know we can fight. But what they don't know yet is that we can outlast them." He turned toward the hologram projector, which showed a map of the galaxy. Dozens of stars glowed in red, Earth's old colonies, some dead, some isolated, some in enemy hands. Beck pointed. "We take them back." 3 weeks later, the campaign began. Earthfleet didn't broadcast its movements. There were no press statements, no interviews, just ships vanishing into warp tunnels, then reappearing above long-abandoned colonies. On Lyra 3, Earth soldiers walked through the shattered remains of a domed city, finding survivors who had turned feral, humans who'd lived underground for 15 years, still loyal to Earth, still hiding children in bunkers every time a trade ship passed overhead. On Vega 9, Earth's forces fought a bloody skirmish with a League-backed militia who'd turned the colony into a slaver hub. Earthfleet left no one alive. They burned the compound to glass, freed the captives, and flew the Earth banner again over the scarred soil. The galaxy watched, quiet, nervous, because for every victory, Earth said nothing. No diplomacy, no debate, just action. Beck received a message one night, encrypted, hidden under 16 layers of reroutes, but the signature was unmistakable. It was from Saito, one of the last survivors of EarthGov's old intelligence arm. The message was short. "They're forming a coalition. You hit too hard. Now they're uniting against you. Names attached: Trade Corps, League, Kashan Cultivates, possibly Council Black Ops. They want Earth isolated. If you're reading this, you've got 6 weeks before the noose tightens. Plan accordingly." Beck read it twice, then deleted it. 6 weeks. That's all the time Earthfleet had before the rest of the galaxy moved from fear to offense. Beck stared out the viewport again. The stars looked calmer now, but he knew better. They were watching. He turned to the comms officer. "Send a message to all fleet captains," he said. "Text or video, sir?" "Neither." He walked to the console himself, typed it with gloved fingers. 6 weeks. Make them count. 6 weeks. That was the number carved into every tactical screen, every mission timer, every hard-coded briefing embedded into Earthfleet's internal systems. 6 weeks before the galaxy stopped holding its breath. 6 weeks before the knives came out. Admiral Theron Beck stood in the black heart of the Vindicator, watching the newest report stream in. More of the same. Rerouted trade convoys, border skirmishes. Sensor pings from cloaked ships brushing Earth's reactivated colonies, spies in deep systems probing Earth fleet movements and supply chains. It wasn't war. Not yet. But it was tightening. The galaxy wanted to pretend they were still in control, that Earth's resurrection was a fluke, an anomaly, a ghost fleet made of bitter old men and rusted metal. But they were wrong. And soon, they would remember what Earth used to be, and what it had become in the dark. Theron pulled up the list of the coalition forming against them. Unofficial title, the Containment Pact, backed by 3 of the most powerful entities still standing. The Trade Corps, driven by profit and politics. The League of Allied Species, a bureaucratic mess of cowards clinging to peace. And worst of all, the Kashan Cultivates, biotech fanatics with fleets grown from living organisms. Each had reasons to fear Earthfleet. Each had benefited from Earth's fall. Now they wanted to ensure it didn't rise again. But there was one name that chilled even Beck. Project Glassline. He tapped the word on the secure feed and watched the decrypted data file unfold. It wasn't much. Fragmented intelligence, intercepted whispers. But one phrase stood out. If Earthfleet escalates, activate Glassline. No survivors. Later that day, Beck met with his corps commanders in the Vindicator's Situation Room. The atmosphere was heavier than usual. Everyone could feel it, the shift. The next phase of the war wasn't going to be ship to ship. It was going to be in shadows, in sabotage, in public opinion, and in betrayal. Beck didn't bother with formalities. The coalition's confirmed. They're calling it containment. It'll start with blockades, soft borders, and black market sanctions. Then come the assassinations. Then the fleets. Let them come, muttered Commander Dre. Beck's voice cut in, cold and precise. This isn't Cestus. This isn't a head-on brawl. They won't send 300 ships for us to burn in orbit. They'll bleed us from inside. Corran leaned forward. Then we hit first. Beck nodded. Exactly. He brought up the map, highlighted 3 stars, Nexus 1, Barta L, and Nekara's Rift. Nexus 1 is their central fuel relay. It supplies over 30% of the Trade Corps' outer fleets. Take it, and they choke, Corran said. Barta L is League-held, but more importantly, it's where the Kashain send their gene seed shipments. Their ships don't build themselves. And the Rift? Dre asked. Beck's eyes hardened. It's where they're storing whatever the hell Project Glassline is. No one asked how he knew. They trusted he wouldn't speak unless it was real. Earthfleet split into 3 factions that day. 3 missions, all off the books. No comms, no support, no reinforcements. Each task force would strike deep into hostile space, destroy, extract, or cripple. Whatever it took to break the coalition's spine before it could stiffen. Beck himself took the Vindicator and 2 stealth ships toward the Rift. Because if Project Glassline was what he feared, it wasn't just about Earthfleet anymore. It was about extinction. The Rift was dead space, a black scar across the galaxy, too unstable for colonization, too quiet for war. Rumors said ancient weapons had once been tested here. Others said it was cursed, home to things too dangerous even for warlords to touch. It was the perfect place to hide something. And Earthfleet found it. After slipping through layered defense grids, encrypted scan traps, and cloaked minefields, the Vindicator came upon a station. No name, no beacon, just a massive biometal ring floating in orbit around a dead world. 3 Kashain dreadships hovered near it, pulsing with unnatural life. Theron stood at the forward screen, arms folded. Give me visual. The screen shifted, zoomed in. There, on the side of the station, was the mark, Glassline, and beneath it, the Earth symbol, old EarthGov military sigil, repurposed. Beck stared at it in silence. "Sir," Heron whispered, "that's our tech." Beck's jaw clenched. "Not ours," he muttered. "They took it, twisted it." He turned to the weapons officer. "Prepare railguns. EMP rounds only. I want that station disabled, not destroyed." The attack began at 0200 Standard Time. It was surgical. The Vindicator hit the station with pinpoint strikes, slicing through power relays and guidance systems. The stealth corvettes swooped in, jamming the dreadship's neural linkages, paralyzing the Kashane vessels. The station blinked out. Dead in space. Beck led the boarding team himself. They found corridors lined with glass tubes. Inside each one, a human, not dead, not alive, suspended in neural lock. Their eyes moved, trapped, aware. Thousands of them. Beck walked the hall with ice in his veins. "What the hell is this?" one soldier whispered. Beck already knew. Glassline wasn't a weapon. It was insurance, hostages, clones, copies of every high-ranking Earthfleet officer, every diplomat, every colony leader from Earth's past, grown from old DNA, harvested during the fall. They weren't planning to destroy Earthfleet. They were planning to replace it. Beck stood in front of his own face, a clone, slightly younger, same scar, same eyes. It stared at him behind the glass, expression blank. Beck didn't speak. He turned and walked away. "Plant charges," he said. "We're not leaving this station standing." "Sir, should we recover any of the—" "No," he said flatly. He didn't want pieces of himself living in a jar. Earth's legacy was already twisted enough. The station burned behind them as the Vindicator pulled away. The Kashane dreadships tried to give chase, but they were too slow, too damaged, too late. Beck didn't smile. He didn't speak. His message wasn't for them. It was for the ones watching, the ones who thought Earth could be replaced. By the end of the 4th week, Earthfleet had crippled the Trade Corps' main supply line, sabotaged the League's diplomatic summit with a data leak, exposed Project Glassline to the galaxy. The Coalition's grip was cracking. Panic started to set in, because Earth wasn't just fighting. It was proving that silence didn't mean weakness. It meant calculation. It meant every scar had been measured, every grudge accounted for, every betrayal tallied. And now the bill was due. But back on Earth, deep beneath the old lunar base of Cradle 1, another threat stirred. A man watched the war unfold from the shadows. He wasn't part of Earthfleet. He wasn't part of the Council. He used to be EarthGov's shadow hand before it fell. Now he was something worse. His name, Director Halric Vane. His program, Echo Protocol. And unlike Beck, he didn't want justice. He wanted power. 2 weeks left. The clock ticked louder now. Even the silence aboard the Vindicator felt heavier. Less like calm, more like pressure. Admiral Theron Beck stood in his quarters, watching Earth from orbit. It looked peaceful. It wasn't. Earth had risen from the ashes, yes, but it had done so alone. There was no applause, no allies welcoming it back, just ghosts in the ruins and wolves in the stars. And now Earth had power again, which meant someone would always want to take it. The message came encrypted, no signal trace, no ID, but the voice? It was a ghost. "Theron, if you're hearing this, it means I'm still alive, but not for long." He hadn't heard that voice in 15 years. Commander Rhys Talvin, the man who trained him, the man who vanished when EarthGov collapsed, assumed dead in the fall of Helion Station. But that voice didn't sound dead. Beck played it again, jaw tightening. "Echo Protocol is active. Vane survived. He's in the cradle. He's been there for years. You were never supposed to find out. That's why Glassline existed. He's behind all of it. If you want to stop this, you need to kill him. No trials, no justice. Just kill him. Silence. Then static. Then nothing. Pull the Vindicator off patrol rotation, Beck ordered 30 minutes later. His bridge crew looked surprised. Even Corin. Sir, the colony convoys still need escort. Transfer to the Resolute. Keep our presence alive. But I'm taking this ship home. Dre raised an eyebrow. Back to Earth? No, Beck said. The moon. Cradle 1, humanity's oldest surviving space facility. A pre-war relic built into the hollowed rock beneath the lunar surface. It had once been Earth's military brain. Then it became a tomb. Records claimed it went dark after the fall. But that was the thing about records. They were written by survivors. And survivors always left something out. The Vindicator dropped into lunar orbit under full stealth. No broadcasts, no landing clearance. No ceremony. The hangar bay doors to Cradle 1 opened anyway, as if someone had been waiting. Beck led the entry team himself. 4 men, all hand-picked. No AI assistants, no drones, pure old-school human muscle. The air inside the facility was sterile, but wrong. Lights flickered on without sound. There were no technicians, no guards, just long corridors lined with steel and silence. Corin glanced around as they swept the first level. I don't like this, she muttered. It's too quiet. Beck said nothing. He remembered the message. He's been there for years. They reached Command Level 3 without resistance. That's where they found the first bodies. Human, fresh, Earthfleet uniforms, throats slit. One of the men bent down to check vitals, then recoiled. Sir, these aren't soldiers. These are clones. Beck's face didn't move. How many? Too many. All of them. Me. The realization hit like gravity. This wasn't just a lab. It was a control center. Glassline wasn't contained to that station they'd destroyed. It had tendrils. Here, on the moon, on Earth, inside Earthfleet. A steel door hissed open ahead. Inside, a man, sitting calmly at a table with 2 glasses of dark liquor, wearing a pristine EarthGov uniform, black and gold. His face was older than the pictures, but Beck recognized him instantly. Director Halric Vane, Earth's ghost, the man who vanished when EarthGov died. The one who supposedly burned in the same fire that killed half the High Command. Vane raised his glass without a smile. Theron, you made good time. The room was sterile, cold, just the 2 of them. Corin and the others stood outside. Beck insisted on going in alone. You're dead, Beck said, staring at him. Not quite. I went underground. You went into space. Funny how we both survived the same purge. You knew about Cestus. Vane swirled the drink. I ordered it. Beck didn't move. His hand didn't twitch toward his sidearm. Not yet. Vane's smile never reached his eyes. Cestus was meant to break Earth, so we could rebuild. You saw the result? Unity through suffering. Anger became discipline. Emotion became calculation. We gave birth to a better species. You sacrificed 500,000 civilians. I sacrificed weakness. Beck leaned forward. You think what we've built is yours? I think, Vane said softly, that what you've built is exactly what I wanted. And now that it's standing, I want it back. Vane stood calmly. You're a symbol, Theron. A myth. A figurehead that's no longer needed. Earthfleet needs efficiency now, not grief. Beck stared him down. You think I'm going to hand this over to you? You think I spent 20 years hunting ghosts just to let a war criminal sit back on a throne? You already did, Vane said. He pressed a button. The room behind them lit up. Dozens of monitors, each one showing fleet officers, commanders, politicians, scientists, all glass-line clones, living, functioning, infiltrating. "They're already in place," Vane said. "Across the board. Your high command is a game of mirrors. You don't even know who's real anymore." Beck clenched his jaw. "I do now." He drew his pistol. Vane didn't flinch. "I expected this," he said. "I hoped for it." He opened his arms, unarmed. "Do it. Make me a martyr. Prove to them that the face of Earthfleet is just a bitter man with a gun." Beck paused, then lowered the weapon. Vane's grin widened, until Beck tapped his wristcom. "Execute fallback protocol." The walls behind Vane exploded. Detonation charges hidden in the clone bays went off in sequence. Fire surged through the corridors as alarms shrieked. Beck looked him dead in the eye. "I'm not killing you, Vane." He turned and walked away as Vane's smile collapsed. "I'm erasing you." They left Cradle 1 in flames. No records, no survivors. The original glass-line lab wiped, the core servers scrubbed. Everything Vane built in the dark? Gone, except for one thing. As the Vindicator climbed back into orbit, Corrin approached Beck in the observation bay. "You think that's the end of it?" Beck didn't answer right away. "No, he didn't build all that alone. There's more out there. Shadows we haven't found yet." He turned to her. "But now the galaxy knows something else." "What?" "That we clean our own house." The message was sent anonymously to every major faction. A live feed of the glass-line clone chambers, a list of names, and one sentence: "Earth doesn't forget, and we do not forgive." Back on the galactic rim, the Coalition fractured. The League splintered. The Trade Corps held emergency votes to avoid war. The Kashen fell silent entirely. What was once a galaxy rising against Earth became a galaxy trying to keep its own secrets buried. Because now, everyone had something to hide, and Earth had proven it would drag those secrets into the light. Beck sat alone in his quarters again, watching the stars. He didn't feel proud. He didn't feel victorious, just focused. Vane was right about one thing. Earthfleet was changing, but it wasn't becoming something better. It was becoming something necessary. It started with a single message. 3 words. "We remember Helion." The phrase was carved into the side of a Trade Corps orbital station. Not etched by tools or bombed in from the outside, but cut clean into the hull by a high-density laser from within the station itself. No explosions, no casualties, just a message. And it worked better than any missile. Within 24 hours, 7 Trade Corps transport routes halted movement. Station security forces purged half their senior staff under suspicion of being sympathetic to Earthfleet. Share markets crashed. Paranoia exploded. Earthfleet had turned silent annihilation into psychological warfare. They were no longer seen as soldiers. They were ghosts, shadows with old grudges and new weapons, and no one knew where they would strike next. Admiral Theron Beck didn't need to give orders anymore. His name alone did it. He sat aboard the Vindicator, now orbiting the reclaimed colony of Jericho 7, overlooking what had once been a barren, glassed-out crater. Now it pulsed with life again. Engineers rebuilding domes, miners restarting cores, families returning with wary eyes. But Theron wasn't there to rebuild. He was there to warn. The broadcast went out on all civilian frequencies, a rare thing. Earthfleet didn't talk to the galaxy, not directly, not since Cestus. This time it had to be different. This time, the galaxy needed to hear a voice, not to feel safe, to feel fear. The screen opened with static, then faded into the Earthfleet insignia. No anthem, no banners. Then came Beck, standing alone on a steel platform, flanked only by silence and the black of space behind him. "This is Admiral Theron Beck of Earthfleet Command." A pause. His voice was calm, unapologetic. "There are those who believe our return is temporary, that we are outnumbered, outmaneuvered, and isolated. They are wrong." He looked into the lens. "We were silent for 20 years. In that time, you burned our colonies, sold our people, rewrote our history, and buried your crimes behind treaties and redacted files." Another pause. "We are not here to ask for peace, or territory, or trade. We are here to balance the scale." The screen cut to black. The last words echoed on loop. "We are not here to ask." The galaxy responded in chaos. Some worlds pledged immediate loyalty, not out of belief, but out of fear. Fringe colonies and outer rim stations broadcast Earth's emblem across their walls before Earthfleet even arrived. Others tried to resist, and they paid. The Resolute destroyed 3 orbital defense platforms above the Talvos system in less than 6 minutes. No casualties on either side, no warning given. When asked why, Earthfleet simply released files proving the system had funneled weapons to the Zarn during the Cestus occupation. Then they left. Didn't even stay to gloat, just erased and gone. Back on Earth, the Council of Remnants, what was left of EarthGov's political spine, requested a meeting with Beck. It was the first time since the war began. Beck took it, only to remind them who was in charge now. The council chamber was built into the ruins of Old Geneva, surrounded by memorials to the dead, cracked statues, and scorched marble. Beck didn't sit when he entered. He remained standing while 12 old men and women, draped in robes and patched uniforms, tried to look him in the eye. Councillor Merrick, thin and bitter, spoke first. "You're turning us into tyrants." Beck didn't blink. "We were turned into victims long before I ever fired a shot. We've become what they feared." "Good," Beck said. "Fear is the only language they understand." Another counselor tried to soften the tone. "Earthfleet was meant to protect our people." "And I am," Beck interrupted. "I'm protecting their future by making sure the past never happens again." "And at what cost?" Beck finally stepped forward. "You want to know the cost?" he asked. 400,000 voices buried in ash. 15 survivors from Cestus. A planet's worth of blood spilled because Earth asked the galaxy to recognize its right to exist. He glared across the room. They didn't listen to reason, so now they'll listen to silence. He turned and walked out. No vote was called. There was no need. The council knew where power lived now. Not in chambers, but in fleet command. Still, not all wars are won in space. While Earthfleet struck from above, the real fight moved into shadows. On the capital world of Varesh Prime, the beating heart of the League, something cracked. A young human diplomat, Daniel Reeves, barely 30, rose in the ranks almost overnight. Clean record. Fluent in 3 alien dialects. Built bridges that hadn't been walked in years. What no one realized? Reeves wasn't born on Earth. He was born in orbit, on a ship that barely escaped the Vega 9 massacre. His parents burned in atmosphere. He never forgot. And now, he stood in the League's inner court, smiling while placing listening devices into every ambassador's office. Earthfleet never asked him to. He did it because Earth didn't forget. Theron Beck received the intel a week later. Not just recordings, blueprints, troop deployments, active sabotage contracts from League intelligence targeting Earth-aligned systems. Beck studied them in silence. Corin stood behind him. "It's everything we need." "No," Beck said. "It's only the beginning." He tapped a file. The top name, Councillor Jal Haran, a key architect of the League's containment policies. "Send a strike team." Corin frowned. "Assassination?" "No," Beck said. "Abduction." "Why?" "Because the galaxy needs to hear someone beg." The operation was quiet. No blood spilled. Jal Haran was taken from his luxury estate on a pleasure moon orbiting Siren V. Earthfleet operatives breached his personal shield array, drugged his guards, and pulled him from his bedroom within 7 minutes. They didn't torture him, didn't touch him. They just sat him in front of a camera and pressed record. He broke in 4 hours. The footage was never released publicly. It was only leaked to the League's inner military circle. What he confessed to, black site colonies, human experimentation, vote manipulation, shattered the League's credibility in one night. Their military arm split in half. 3 admirals defected. 2 committed suicide. One called Theron Beck directly and said only, "We were wrong." Beck said nothing in return. He hung up. But power doesn't come without weight. Inside Earthfleet, the stress started to show. Commander Dre walked into Beck's office late one night, uninvited, and dropped his badge on the desk. "I can't keep doing this," he said. Beck looked up. "Explain." "This isn't war anymore. It's execution." Beck leaned back, tired. "It's balance." "No, sir. It's fear, and we're starting to like it." Beck stared at the badge on the desk. He didn't argue. He just nodded. "You're dismissed." Dre left the room, and Beck sat in the quiet, alone, just like always. They won. No one wanted to admit it, but Earthfleet had already won. The coalition shattered. Trade routes collapsed. Galactic unity fractured. Earth's enemies no longer coordinated strikes. They coordinated retreats. But for Theron Beck, victory didn't taste like triumph. It tasted like ashes, and the faces of people who'd followed him into darkness, only to start wondering if he was dragging them too far. He looked at the mirror in his quarters one night. He didn't see a hero. He saw a weapon. And it was too late to be anything else. They came from the void. 27 ships, none bearing flags, no colors, no insignias, just silent shapes, painted matte black, their surfaces bristling with strange technology Earthfleet's sensors couldn't classify. They didn't broadcast warnings. They didn't demand surrender. They just appeared. Beck stood on the bridge of the Vindicator, eyes locked on the tactical display. A dozen red blips hovered around the rim of Earth's outer defense line. "They're not broadcasting," Corin said from beside him. "Not League, not Core, not Cultivates." "They're ghosts," Beck muttered. Dre would have called it an omen, if he were still here. 2 days earlier, Earthfleet intercepted a long-range data burst hidden in a civilian frequency. It was encoded, but Earth's new AI decrypted it in 4 minutes. The message was from 8 factions, all former enemies, all fractured by Earthfleet's rise. Now they had a name. The Interstellar Accord of Survival. No pretensions, no politics, just one goal. Earthfleet must be neutralized. The data dump included fleet rosters, newly constructed weapons platforms, AI-hardened fighters, even genetically bonded Kashan strike crews. And worse, proof that several former Earth colonies had secretly pledged support to the Accord. The shock wasn't that Earth's enemies were fighting back. The shock was that some humans were joining them. One name stood out. General Tavik Sol, former Earthfleet, decorated, respected, killed in action 15 years ago. But he wasn't dead. He was leading the Accord's first wave. Beck stared at the file for a long time, then closed it without a word. The first strike came at Bastion 4, one of Earth's proudest reclamations, an old mining station turned into a fortress shipyard. It didn't stand a chance. The Ghost Fleet tore through it with particle compression beams and cloaked drones. Earth Fleet's defenses were good, but they weren't built for this kind of war. Bastion 4 went dark in 12 minutes. 37,000 dead. No survivors. Only a message. A voice Beck hadn't heard in years. Tavik Sol. Theron, I watched what you've become, what you made Earth into. This isn't vengeance. This is empire, and I won't be part of it. None of us will. Then static. Then silence. The next day, Earth Fleet lost 2 more outer colonies. The Accord wasn't fighting like the old League. They weren't posturing or slow. They were Earth Fleet's reflection, fast, ruthless, unbound by diplomacy. Corrin slammed her fist into the war table. They're using our tactics, our formations, even our fleet signatures. They're one step ahead on every play. They're us, Beck said coldly. She looked at him. You trained Sul. I trained them all. He stared at the map. Blips blinked red across half the quadrant. Earthfleet's dominance was being rewritten by its own forgotten sons. And for the first time, Beck wasn't sure they could outpace the damage. Back on Earth, riots started, not from enemies, from civilians, families of the fallen. Colonists who saw Beck not as a protector, but a tyrant who'd provoked the galaxy's wrath. Images of dead children from Bastion 4 circulated on neutral broadcasts, always played beside Beck's now infamous message, "We are not here to ask." The weight of those words had shifted. No longer strength. Now, a curse. In the underground sectors of Earth, whispers began. A resistance, not organized, not funded, but growing. Men and women who remembered the Cestus massacre still wore Earth Fleet's symbol on their skin. But the next generation? They wanted something else. They didn't want vengeance. They wanted peace. Theron sat in silence as the report stacked up. Corrin finally snapped. We're losing the narrative. We were never here to write it. You said this war would make them fear us. You said we'd never be victims again. We're not. He looked up at her. We're just something worse. The Vindicator received an emergency beacon from Jericho 7. The colony Beck had helped rebuild. It was under siege, not by aliens, not by pirates, by humans, ex-Earth Fleet officers, using Earth-built ships, firing Earth-forged weapons, flying the old EarthGov flag, flipped upside down in protest. When the Vindicator arrived, the colony was already half in flames. Refugees flooded the comms, begging for help. But there was no one else left. Every ship Earthfleet had was either pinned in defense of a failing border or gone dark. Beck made the call. All weapons live, full ordnance, no holds. Sir, Corrin tried to object. No more warnings, no more containment, we wipe them. But they're traitors, he said flatly. He said it with the same voice he used on the Zarn. The strike lasted 8 minutes. Earthfleet flattened the attackers. But Jericho burned anyway. Collateral damage, orbital debris, 2 domes collapsed from kinetic shock, over 10,000 civilians killed. It was the worst Earth-on-Earth casualty since the fall of Helion. Theron didn't speak for 2 days, not to his crew, not to the council, not even to Corrin. When he finally did, it was to himself. Standing in his quarters, looking at an old file on a dusty datapad. A message from Cestus, his sister. She was 17, smiling, innocent. She'd died thinking Earth was still good. He wondered what she'd say now, what she'd see in him. Corin came to him that night. Her voice was quiet. There's a growing list of commanders doubting you. They're free to leave. They don't want to leave. She hesitated. They want to remove you. Beck turned slowly. Who? She paused, then said it. Captain Varric, Commander Norin, 2 others, maybe more. He nodded. No anger, no shock. He already knew. She stepped forward. If you give the order, I can handle it. Quietly. He looked at her for a long time, then shook his head. No. Sir, I'm not going to be the man they say I am. Instead, he did something worse. He called a meeting. Every senior Earth Fleet commander still loyal, or pretending to be, joined via secure channel. Beck spoke once. I know you doubt me. I know you think I've gone too far. Maybe I have. But I'll tell you this. He leaned closer. You either finish what we started, or you get out of my way. The line went dead. Half the commanders stayed, half didn't. And so Earth Fleet broke, not officially, not in headlines, but in trust. What once was a unified sword was now a blade cracking down the center. And the Accord? They were coming. With more ships, with more former allies, with more humans who didn't fear Earth Fleet anymore. Because the one thing Beck couldn't bomb, or threaten, or outflank, was regret. 2 weeks later, Earth orbit, high-security lockdown. The sky above Earth burned with movement. Fleets, patrols, rogue signatures being chased down by old allies in Earth Fleet uniform. And still, the black stayed quiet. Theron Beck watched it from the war deck of the Vindicator. He wasn't wearing his admiral's coat. He'd left that behind. He didn't feel like a commander anymore. Just a man waiting for a final decision he already knew was coming. Behind him, Commander Corin stood at attention. Her eyes were bloodshot, but her voice was steady. We have full confirmation. The Accord fleet is en route. 24 hours, maybe less. They're bypassing colonies heading straight for Earth. Beck didn't turn. Numbers? 87 warships, 12 Dread class. 30% are former Earth Fleet tech. The rest, unknown designs, hybrid systems, cloaked cores. Their targeting profiles match ours. Because they're us, he muttered. She hesitated. We still have the Jericho array. If we deploy it. No. But it could wipe out. I said no, Beck snapped, finally turning. His face was gaunt. Aged 10 years in 2 months. You think I'll drop an orbital weapon on Earth's doorstep? Prove everything they say I've become? He stepped toward her, lower now, quieter. I've made monsters run, Corin. I've made empires kneel. But I will not make Earth fear me. She held his gaze, and said what no one else would. They already do. 23 hours later, Luna Defense Grid. Offline multiple Earth Fleet stations, silent. They came fast. The Accord didn't announce their arrival. No ultimatum, no ceremony. Their first move was blinding. Cloaked drones surged into Earth's orbital defense net, disabling long-range comms and redirecting IFF signals. Earth Fleet warships started targeting each other within minutes. Saboteurs inside Earth Fleet, planted over months, started cutting through corridors on stations in low orbit. In an hour, the Earth system turned to chaos. Theron Beck's worst nightmare wasn't invasion. It was confusion, paranoia, disunity, betrayal, and now it was everywhere. Inside the Vindicator, Corin screamed into fractured comms. Get those damn frequencies locked! Cut AI sync! We fight this manual if we have to. Earthfleet still had power, but it had no trust. Beck stood in the command chamber, watching 3 of his own cruisers open fire on each other across Earth's upper atmosphere. What's our total? 11 loyal ships remain, Corrin said. Maybe a few more in deep orbit. The rest, compromised or silent. He breathed deep, then nodded. Then we take the 11. He called them directly. No fleet-wide command, no encrypted order, just a simple message, 1 line. Come home. And 11 captains answered. Even those who had doubted him, because in the end, Earth wasn't going to fall to aliens or outsiders. It would fall to its own legacy, unless someone stood and said, no more. The sky above Earth turned red. 27 Accord warships descended into low orbit, blasting through weakened defense nets. They didn't aim for power stations or government buildings. They aimed for Earth fleet. Beck's ships met them halfway. It wasn't enough. They were outgunned, outnumbered, surrounded. But Beck didn't flinch, because it wasn't about winning anymore. It was about what came after. They fought in silence. No battle cries, no inspirational speeches, just ship after ship, spiraling into fire. Beck watched the Resolute detonate above the Pacific, taking 3 Accord interceptors with it. The Wraithfall rammed a dreadnought, tearing it in half before being cut apart by particle beams. Earth's sky burned, and Earth fleet bled. In the final hour, only 2 ships remained, the Vindicator and the Oathless, an old deep space frigate-turned-loyalist missile cruiser. Beck's voice cracked through open comms. To anyone listening, this is Admiral Beck. Earthfleet stands, and if this is our last day, then let the stars know. Before he could finish, the command deck rocked. Explosion. Fire. Hull breach warning. Beck hit the deck, blood running from his brow. Sirens screamed in his ears. Corrin was shouting something he couldn't hear. He looked up, and through the smoke, he saw it. The Accord's flagship, descending into Earth's gravity well, and standing at the helm, broadcasting his face across the ruined Earthfleet channels, General Tavik Sol. Beck rose. He didn't have a fleet, didn't have an army. All he had left was a voice. He opened a channel, direct to Sol. Tavik, the man who once called Beck mentor, stared back, aged but calm. Theron, you're not here to save Earth. Sewell shook his head. I'm here to stop what Earth became. You think this ends with me? I think it begins with you. They didn't speak in riddles. No debates, no politics, just a final choice. Sewell, surrender, step down, let Earth rebuild. Beck, under whose terms? Sewell, under those who still remember peace. Beck, there's no peace left, Tavik, just memory and ash. A pause, then Sewell said it. You lost. Theron Beck stared at the screen, then turned to his crew, what was left of them. Smoke, sparks, dead monitors, broken consoles. He nodded once and said, Then we make the loss cost them. They didn't win, but they didn't die clean either. The Vindicator charged its last railgun and fired, a final shot, straight through the Accord flagship's core. Sol's ship detonated in orbit, sending fire raining down into the upper atmosphere. Beck didn't see the explosion. He was already walking toward the command deck's last terminal, inputting the final override code. Corrin tried to stop him. He shook his head. Get off the ship. She stepped forward, crying now. You don't have to do this. He looked at her. Earth's legacy isn't me, Corrin. It's you. It's the ones who come next. The ones who remember without needing to burn the whole galaxy. She gripped his hand for a second, then left. the Vindicator went dark. A moment later, its core overloaded. The detonation bloomed over Earth like a second sun, taking the last of Earth Fleet's fire with it, and ending the war. 3 months later, Earth no flags were raised, no statues built. Theron Beck died a traitor to half the planet, a hero to the other. But no one forgot him, not even his enemies. Because for all his war, all his wrath, he left one thing behind, a choice: to rebuild, to remember, to rise again, but not in fire, in balance. Corin led the rebuilding efforts. She never wore his title, never claimed command. But when Earth looked for leadership, they found her standing where Beck used to. And when she spoke his name, she never said it with pride, just with respect and silence. Theron Beck's legacy was simple. He showed the galaxy what Earth could become, and what it must never become again.